Hello and welcome to Olivia's Catastrophe. I'm Olivia and today I'm here to give you my October wrap-up video, which is great because I love it because I get to talk about all the wonderful books that I managed to read this month. I managed to read 11 books, which is quite good by my standards, and I read quite a lot of amazing books, so I can't wait to tell you all about them. Let's get right on to the books. So the first book that I finished reading was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I had to study it for my course, but you know, it's October, creepy feels, there was no better time to read Frankenstein. And I've been meaning to read it for ages, so I'm glad that I could finally get around to it. As you know, this is a classic story where this guy called Frankenstein, and yes, the scientist's name is Frankenstein, not the monster, makes this creature that is human-like but is still a monster, and it's all about the ethical debate about bringing life to inanimate objects and who is the real monster, and there's just so much going on in this book that I know I need to make a review just so that I can talk you through all my thoughts and feelings. It was like a smattering of emotions everywhere. I cannot wait to share more about this book in a review. I'm literally giving this 5 stars. You have to read this classic. Okay, so it wasn't the next book I read, but I also read A School for Unusual Girls by Kathleen Baldwin. It was the book of my TBR. I've been meaning to read it forever. It's taken me 2 months to get through this book, but I did really enjoy it. Now, this one is about a school. It's set in history, so around the time when Napoleon is threatening to take the throne in France. And it's about this girls' school in England, which is rumoured for being a torture school, making the ladies who will never, making girls who would never be considered ladies into ladies. But when Georgie, the main character, gets there, she finds out that this school is not all that it seems. It's for unusual kind of girls, and I'll leave the mystery there for you to read this one. The beginning was a bit slow, which is why it took me so long to get into it, but then when I did get into it, I finished the book in a day. 200 pages in a day shows that I actually really did enjoy it. The story focused on love quite a lot, but it still had a good plot line and it was a great setup. Can't wait to read the second book, which I have on my shelf behind me, which means I'll be getting to that soon. Then I read Last Chance by Greg Hurwitz, which was absolutely amazing. If you are watching this video, I do have a review video for this video up. I'll leave a link to that below. I have a review on my blog. I'm not sure if the giveaway is still going now or not, but make sure you head over to my review post on my blog just to check if you can win this book and the first book in this series if you're living within the US and Canada. So make sure you check out that and check out my review to see why this book was worth 5 stars. Then we're switching over to poetry that I had to read for my course, and I read Howl, Kaddish and Other Poems by Allen Ginsberg. I actually only had to read Howl for my course, but then I enjoyed that poem so much that I thought, you know what, I'm just going to read the rest of his works in his collection. Now, Allen Ginsberg, his poetry really is very thematic, although it's personal poetry, so it's really about his life and things that he's going through in his relationships. You still can see the thematic connections to materialism, capitalism, you know, minorities and how they're being undervalued, and what do we do with the other people in life who don't fit the perfection stereotype, which are all things that are pretty relevant today as well. Funny. So of course this was a really interesting poetry collection to read. I had to give it a lot of brain power, so if you're not somebody who likes giving your poetry a lot of brain power, I don't recommend this one. But if you are someone who likes to think a bit deeper with your poems, to really understand them, then I have to highly recommend Allen Ginsberg poetry. Continuing on with poetry, I read Lunch Poems by Frank O'Hara. Again, this was another one for the creative writing section of my course, and now I'm saying that if you do not like to think too much about your poetry, you can enjoy lunch poems, and if you do like to think a lot about your poetry, you also can enjoy lunch poems, because Frank O'Hara has a very varied style. There's some here that were absolutely hilarious, but then there were some that had deeper meanings, and there were some that had meanings, but they weren't, you didn't have to dig too deeply to find them. So I think, you know, Frank O'Hara really does do a poem for everyone. I actually really did enjoy them. Not all of them were my style, but I did like a lot of them. Again, that just comes from it being so varied and the types that it goes through when you read it. Actually, one of my first reads in October was Faust by Goethe, I believe, and it's a play which is really to do with science, magic, a bit of romance, a bit of human nature and base instinct. And this was again one that I was studying for my course, and when I read it I didn't really enjoy it. I think you can really enjoy it if you're studying it while reading it rather than just reading it for the pleasure of reading. I'm going to do an educational breakdown review on this one to help people who will be studying this one in the future. Educational reviews are things that I've kind of wanted to be going into for a bit. Don't know when that will be happening, it's just an idea that's floating around in my head. And then again, I know this isn't the title of the whole book, but from within this book I read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which is a medieval English text which is written in medieval English. Translating it was quite hard. You can read a translated version already, but for my course I had to translate it, which was not all fun and games, but okay. I thought the story itself was a very good story and rose up some very good questions about perfection, imperfection, and of course all the themes surrounding medieval English kind of tales. So I think I'll do an educational review because I don't really think I can go into too much depth here, but it is like an extended poem, kind of, with a narrative tale to it. And that's that one. So those are all the physical books I read, and then I went on to reading ebooks, and all of the ebooks I read were Santino Hassel. Surprise! So the first one that I read by Santino Hassel was Sightlines, and that one was released in the month of October. That is the conclusion to the Community series. I'm not going to tell you too much about it because it's the end of the series, but I'll tell you about the first book. Basically, the first book follows Nate and Trent. Nate is a guy who has like these supernatural abilities that when he touches someone he can feel their emotions, but the thing is that it's not controlled. He cannot control it, so whether he touches somebody he wants to touch or doesn't want to touch, he just gets this wave of like negative, usually negative emotions that they're feeling. So he tries not to touch people too much, and he gets this sudden vision that his brother is dying, his twin brother is dying, and then of course he gets news that his twin brother died, and now when he sees it as a murder in his vision, but other people say no, he just died. So Nate takes it upon himself to go to where his twin brother was and find out who murdered him and bring him to justice. This kind of unwraps this whole conspiracy theory, which then follows through the whole series to where we get Chase and Elijah's story, which is the one I read this month. Pretty good ending. It's an NA paranormal series, but I have to say that this one leads way more heavily on the paranormal and the actual storyline than the NA, which is kind of different for Santino Hassel's romance series. So I have to say that if you're more looking for a paranormal kind of read, I would recommend this one to you. I really liked the conclusion. It was a good way to end the series. Then Santino Hassel was a bit sneaky, and he did a sneaky release of Third Rail. And Third Rail is a short story which is kind of the prequel, or you can read it as a standalone to a book that he's releasing in November, and you can get it for free, or at least I got it for free at the time. I still believe you can get it for free. If you can, I'll leave links to where you can get it for free down below. And it's basically about this guy who we've met in his 5 Boroughs series called Chris, who's kind of like experimental, but he's not really done much. And there's Jace and Adam, and those are, they're two husbands, they're married to each other, who like to bring in a playmate for their sexual adventures, and they bring in Chris, and things start to develop where they kind of want him to stick around, but Chris is not ready to be used, so things go down, and I think it kind of ends in the middle of things because it's going to be picked up again in the November release, which I'm looking forward to. And then the last 2 books I read were rereads, because I've been busy rereading Santino Hassel and Megan Erickson's Cyberlove series, and I kind of didn't reread them in order. Well, basically I haven't reread them in order, so the ones that I reread were Fast Connection and Mature Content this month. Yep, so those are all the books that I read in the month of October. I'm so glad I was able to manage 11, and I'm hoping November will be an epic reading month too. I'm going to make a November TBR, and that video will be out later this week, so make sure you stick around and get notified for that one. If you want to be notified, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Meanwhile, let me know in the comment down below how many books you managed to read in October, or what your favourite read in October was. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week with another video. Goodbye. So I reread the first one, then I reread the 4th one, so I reread the 2nd one. I'm confusing myself with all those numbers.